Hello and welcome to Ranked Up. My name is Noah and here's a list of our favourite open world games that you must play. So open world games just keep on getting bigger and denser with stuff to do, and there's a shit ton of different games out there to choose from. But which one is actually good? Today we're talking about the 10 kind of best open world games, the games that are really worth getting lost in or sinking some hours into. Look, this is subjective and it's only 10 picks, but we have some fun stuff to talk about. So without further ado, let's start this list right away with number 10. It's Mad Max. This is one of those games where people were absolutely dogging it when it came out, but then over the years it famously kind of grew in reputation, and now people seem to all agree. Mad Max is pretty damn sweet. It should be obvious. I mean, it's got cars and explosions and punching people and lots of stuff. It's just good. What's not to like? The graphics still hold up surprisingly really well, and the car combat is absolutely addictive, especially once you start figuring out how you want to, build out your car. It's satisfying stuff, man. The story, although bare bones and not really 100% in line with the world like a lot of people expect, just totally works. You know, it makes sense for a Mad Max video game. In comparison to the Fury Road movie, it's nowhere near as weird or clever or crazy, but it gives you enough reason to do a ton of cool shit, to kill a lot of raiders and really mad dudes. You're going to find a lot of small compounds to clear out, some racing and caravans to destroy, and a lot of stuff we think is just still really fun. I mean, just being able to use your grapple in the car to just yank unsuspecting dudes, it's just endlessly entertaining. It's like one small thing, but absolutely awesome. Now, the game is a bit outdated. You know, if you're looking for something a little more refined, they don't make them like this anymore. But if you're willing to accept some of its rough edges, then Mad Max is absolutely a game worth going back to and just kind of sinking in for a while or so. Mad Max is a classic open-world game in, the Xbox 360 sense. You get this big world, not a lot to do in it a lot of the time, but when there is something, it is really fun. But next, at number 9, Death Stranding. Look, this is going to be a divisive one completely. Death Stranding is an objective masterpiece, there's no doubt about that. But it's also a game a lot of people are just not going to click with. You're probably going to know within just a couple of hours if this game is for you or it's just not. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people look at Death Stranding as an open world game, and maybe you've played games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and you feel like you're ready for it because they're both open world games where you walk around doing busy work for a lot of it. But there's a little bit more to it than that. Death Stranding is an even more incredibly slow-paced game than something like Red Dead Redemption 2. And depending on what you're looking for, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. It's a game that's going to rub some players the wrong way, and that is A-okay. But to be honest, there is nothing quite like Death Stranding. The world is gorgeous, although the structure of the game makes it so you rarely have a reason to just wander. You're mostly always travelling with some kind of goal in mind. The real killer feature here is online stuff and the ways players interact with each other. You slowly see more and more player-built items appear in your world as the game progresses, and it gradually makes life easier for everyone. It's a very unique multiplayer mechanic that is just incredibly fascinating to see while playing the game, especially when you're kind of starting off on your own. It just feels so lonely. So it just makes the world feel more alive and inviting for everyone. There really is nothing quite like Death Stranding as an open world game or anything really, and that's what makes it so fascinating. It's a polarizing pick, I know, but it had to be said. Now at number 8, Breath of the Wild. So I know this seems like a really obvious pick, but the reality of the situation is Breath of the Wild is still one of the better open world games out there. Few games can match the innovative creativity and the freedom and all the little emergent gameplay things this game really established back when it came out in 2018. And few games have really matched or even come close to the satisfaction that Breath of the Wild gives. It's a really, really good game, and it is not going to appeal to everyone, though the breakable weapons were controversial then, and they're still controversial now. And while the world is massive, it's also very empty, but that is kind of part of the charm, especially for the Zelda series. It's meant to be big, immersive, and at times quiet. It's very much one of those games where the journey is more important than the stuff you do. This is a game where it can be just as fun messing around with the physics or hunting wildlife as it is exploring dungeons or fighting. It's a game that's probably better suited for players who like to make their own fun and set their own goals and objectives. If you're the type of person who likes following a quest marker and just going from one objective to the next, then you can do that here, but you're not playing Zelda like most players are. This is a quintessential get lost in the world game. With the fast-moving glider, climb anything mechanics, and a lot of interesting little landmarks and surprises around every corner, there's just plenty to see and do here. Even the more structured sequel doesn't quite match just how fun it is just exploring and getting lost in Breath of the Wild. Next, at number 7, we have Subnautica. So Subnautica is a survival game, sure, but if you don't know much about it, it was this indie darling hit, really, seemingly out of nowhere because of its open world. Now, it doesn't mean like big open world on land, it means open world underwater. And that's what makes it so unique. There's no direct progression or plotline to the game. For the most part, you just have to establish a base, find the resources you need to survive, and figure out why you were stranded on this weird oceanic alien planet. You spend a lot of your time just right under the waves in more shallow waters searching for important components, and then eventually you start building your bases in some pretty crazy spots. With exploration, you slowly progress further away from the crash site, and eventually you have to start diving really deep to reach the bottom of the planet and figure out what's going on here. The story slowly reveals itself through interesting environmental details and radio messages and stuff, and ultimately there is an ending to the game, but it is a more long-term sort of thing. Progression feels emotive and natural, and the visuals still hold up to this day. Were it on land, like all the game systems at play here would probably feel like unremarkable. And that really goes to show just how a single big, unique element can easily elevate a game for us. That's what it's all about. Creativity and stuff like that, like when people really push the boundaries. And with submarines, massive ocean to explore, and weird alien creatures to run into and probably be freaked out by, just go watch some people's first experience playing Subnautica. It's absolutely awesome. Alright, moving on to number 6, we've got Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2, and man, this one is just grounded in a way most open worlds wouldn't even dare to be. There's no magic or dragons here, just medieval Europe at its grittiest, which somehow makes it way more fascinating than your average fantasy world. You're playing as Henry again, a blacksmith's son tossed into this messy political world where everything from the swordplay to just riding your horse feels heavy and real. You actually have to learn how to do things, and honestly, that makes the payoff way sweeter when you finally figure out how to survive. It's incredibly immersive too. You'll be walking through a muddy alley and overhear townsfolk gossiping about that one quest you just finished. Compared to the first game, everything just feels bigger and more polished, especially the way the world treats your choices like they actually matter. It's not just a map full of icons to check off, it's a living place where cool stories just happen while you're busy trying not to get killed. If you're new to the series, don't let the realism part scare you off. It's the kind of game you'll gladly get lost in for hours just for the vibes alone. Coming in at number 5, we've got Cyberpunk 2077, and if you haven't touched this since its messy launch years ago, you are missing out on one of the greatest glow-ups in gaming history. Night City is just... it's a lot, in the best way possible, with these massive, neon-soaked skyscrapers and grimy back alleys that actually feel like a real living metropolis. You're playing as V, a mercenary trying to make a name for yourself, and the cool part is how much freedom you have to just be whoever. Whether that's a stealthy hacker frying brains from the shadows or a literal walking tank with blades in your arms. The vibe is just unmatched, especially when you're driving through the city at night with the radio up. And the path tracing makes every rainy puddle look so damn pretty. Don't get me wrong, the main story with Johnny Silverhand is fantastic, but the real magic happens in those random side quests where you're just helping out some street doc or getting caught in a gang war. The humour is super dark and cynical, which totally fits the world, and honestly, just stumbling across a weird conversation in a subway station is sometimes better than the actual missions. For the new folks, my big piece of advice is to just ignore the urgency the game tries to shove on you and just wander around, because there's so much detail packed into every corner that you'll gladly get lost in for weeks. It's easily one of the most immersive worlds out there right now, and between the base game and that massive expansion, there is just a shit ton of stuff to sink your teeth into. Next up at number 4, we have Ghost of Yote, which is basically the sequel we've all been screaming for since the first game blew our minds. Instead of sticking with Jin Sakai, we're jumping forward over 300 years to follow a new protagonist named Atsu around the massive, snowy wilds of Mount Yote. It's got that same stunning cinematic DNA as Tsushima, but it feels a bit more untamed and raw, which is honestly perfect for just wandering around. Sucker Punch is pretty much the master of making worlds that look like actual paintings, so you know the scenery is going to be absolutely top tier. You're not just checking boxes on a map here, it's more about that feeling of being a lone wanderer in a place that feels massive and a little bit dangerous. For the new gamers out there, don't worry about the history. This is a fresh start, and the game is designed to let you just soak in the atmosphere at your own pace. It's the kind of open world where you'll see a cool-looking peak in the distance, get distracted by a field of flowers, and totally forget your original mission for like 3 hours. And honestly, that's the best way to play it, just letting the world guide you instead of some glowing UI line. Coming in at number 3 is Hogwarts Legacy. Now, even if you're not a huge Potterhead, this world is just a straight-up blast to exist in. They finally gave us a version of the castle that doesn't feel like a movie set, but a massive, shifting maze full of actual secrets and rooms that change while you're looking at them. It's not just the school, though. You can hop on a broom and fly over the Scottish Highlands, which are surprisingly huge and full of little hamlets and magical beasts to find. The attention to detail is kind of insane, like you'll just be walking to class and end up following a flying book into some hidden dungeon you didn't even know existed. And yeah, the combat is way more kinetic than I expected, with you basically juggling goblins in the air with spells like it's some kind of magical action movie. For anyone who hasn't played many RPGs, this is actually a great place to start because the game doesn't try to drown you in spreadsheets or overly complex mechanics. It's really easy to get sidetracked just by the sheer vibe of the place, whether you're petting every cat in Hogsmeade or just watching the sunset from the Owlery. It's that rare kind of open world where the exploration feels like a reward in itself, rather than just a way to get from point A to point B. If you've ever wanted to just ditch reality and go to wizard school, this is pretty much the gold standard for living out that fantasy. Next at number 2, Horizon Forbidden West is very simply another one of these games in the Horizon world, but just bigger and better. That's what you want from an open world sequel, and that's what Forbidden West gives you. The original Horizon had a pretty unique open world with its blend of tribal aesthetic mixed with these giant dinosaur machines roaming the landscape, and Forbidden West essentially just expands on that basic premise in every way possible. This world's bigger, it's more dense, more visually varied, and it's an absolute joy to just explore on its own. Horizon games make it really easy to mess around if you just want to focus on making, like, your best gear and explore everything. Stay away from the main story. You can do that. The story's actually pretty simple, it's easy to follow, so you're never really going to lose track of what's going on if you choose to wander around and clear every side quest. It's a series that always tries to encourage players to take everything at their own pace and do whatever the hell they want. And it's just cool that it's not trying to force players down a really rigid one specific path. Problem is that for some, the combat can get a little repetitive. I like it. I like blowing all these things apart. I like destroying these big robot animals, but it depends on the gamer. But like I said, I think it's still great, and to some extent, it's actually improved over the original game. And the opportunity to get into more fights is just a welcome thing. If you liked the idea of the first game but got a little tired of the lack of variety of encounters, then Forbidden West is probably the exact game that you want. You know, it's just more of everything that made the first game good, set in a world that's even more arcadey and fun than the first game, which already was really good. Finally, at number 1, we've got Red Dead Redemption 2, which is basically the undisputed heavyweight champion of making you feel like you actually live in the 1890s. Honestly, calling this just a game feels wrong, because the level of detail is almost scary, like your horse actually gets dirty, and Arthur's beard grows in real time while you're out in the wilderness. You're an outlaw. And instead of just rushing from point A to B, the game basically forces you to slow down, bond with your horse, and just exist in this massive, beautiful world. It's the kind of place where you'll head out to hunt a deer, but end up helping some random guy who got bit by a snake, and suddenly you're in the middle of a completely different, unscripted story. For the new gamers, the realism might feel a bit heavy at first, but once it clicks, every victory and every quiet moment feels way more earned and personal. I mean, the lighting in the Heartlands is cozy as hell, and I've spent literal hours just wandering around, which is probably the closest I'll ever get to actually being an outdoorsy person, okay? It's not about checking icons off a map. It's about these tiny human moments that happen while you're just trying to survive out there. Even if you're not usually into Westerns, the writing and the acting here are so top tier that you'll be emotionally wrecked by the end of it. in a good way. It's the ultimate get-lost game, and there really is nothing else out there that even comes close to this level of immersion. But those are 10 open-world games you want to get lost in. You might not love all the choices here, you might not agree with every one of them, and they might not be absolutely perfect, but they are some of the best of the genre, at least from our taste and opinion, or whatever that means. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.